this is like my last year of high school, so my senior experiences are just like gone, and just sometimes you just kind of like
it's my first year in high school, so like I didn't know anyone, and I didn't know how like high school would be online and how different it would be from in person.
They didn't assign that much homework, but sometimes when they did, I would struggle to do it because I was like in my house. I don't want to be doing any more school.
The struggles weren't necessarily caused just by the pandemic. These were deeper struggles that we should be addressing, period.
There are things we will never be able to get back. But there are also time for us to really think very deep, to think about what is really important in life.
I have 3 students whose parents or like guardians had passed from COVID. So it's just been very challenging for my students to stay present considering everything.
I went to class today and had a debate across the whole entire Zoom with 100 plus people in there. And wouldn't nobody know that this morning I got a phone call saying that somebody died that was really close to me. And it's just that I'm so secretive. I don't even know how to open up to people.
And I think of the littles, how do they have the opportunity to express what they need?
Most of our students are invisible to us unless they opt into being seen.
Literally stay up at night trying to identify how to engage scholars who have not shown up at all.
It's just overwhelming. I can't do what I really need to do that's probably best for the kids because there's so much other work that I have to balance.
How do we go through this period and go back to that humanity, that it is what brings us together?
Something that I've gotten out of this and that I've seen with other parents is that we have a sense of ownership over our kids' education. Previously, I would have deferred a lot of what my daughter should be doing, what she shouldn't be doing to her educators. But out of necessity, I've become a much stronger advocate for her and have a sense of ownership over how she's learning and what she's learning. And I don't think that's going to change.
Trying to be smarter about my choices when it comes to curriculum and find more authentic, meaningful curriculum. So that's been the positive from this experience, is the problem solving that I'm learning.
Excuse me, I wasn't really paying attention. I was doing some schoolwork. Sorry.
Welcome, everyone. We're so excited to have you all join us today for the Education ReOpen Kickoff webinar. So today, we will start with welcomes and introductions. We will hear from USC Center Edge. You will learn about the Education ReOpen. We will hear from our partners. We also have had a lot of questions fielded from all of you from the RSVP, and we want to thank all of you. And undoubtedly, you will be asking more, so feel free to include more questions there in the chat to the panelists and to the attendees. We won't be able to answer all of them in our time together. However, we will continue to address your questions and follow-up communications, and we will also be sharing the recording afterwards. And of course, you can also ensure that you have closed captioning by engaging the closed captioning function in your tools there in your menu bar. And if you have any questions following, you can reach us at educationreopen@ideo.com, and we'll be sharing that email later as well. So I just want to thank and welcome our guest speakers today. We have with us today Larry Corio, who's the program manager at Ideo, Alan Arkhitov, the founding director at USC Center Edge, Jules Ho, the executive director at the Andrew Niku Foundation, and myself, I'm Danielle, the community manager from Open Ideo, and I will also be the human that's on the other end of all of your emails. So anytime you need support or if you have any questions, just know that I will be there for you on the other side. So if you're not familiar, for those of you who haven't met us, we're Ideo. and we have hosted over 76 challenges in over 200 plus countries, which have garnered over 20,000 submissions. We also host 32 global chapter volunteer organizations, and truly Open Ideo exists to accelerate diverse problem solvers to transform our world into a more equitable, sustainable, and innovative place.
And I am so glad to be with you all. My name is Larry Corio, as Danielle mentioned. I'm program manager for this challenge. And at Ideo, I also help oversee a program called the Teachers Guild by School Retool, which was referenced in the introduction there. And it's a program to support school communities, to support educators, administrators, students, and families to design equitable futures for their schools using the design process. And so we are so excited to be with you here today as a group, for those who are here with us on the webinar and for those who will be watching afterwards. We're so excited that you've decided to make time in your exceptionally busy schedules, whether your children, your family, yourselves are on break or not this spring. We are so thrilled you are here with us. And so we are coming together around an important question. Over this last year, teaching and learning have radically shifted. We have experienced it ourselves for those in school communities. We have certainly seen it in the news, or we've heard about it over dinner tables. And educators and families have been pushed onto the front lines in really new ways in supporting children academically, socially, and emotionally. But as we have seen at the Teachers Guild and School Retool, as we've seen in Ideo in our practice, and as all of our partners have seen, the ingenuity of school communities never can cease. It has flourished during this time, despite the challenges. And so the Education ReOpen, this Open Innovation Challenge on our doorstep, is an opportunity to help strengthen school communities, to highlight solutions that reconnect people and enhance their well-being, teaching, and learning. And so this is the question we're facing, framed as a design question, as Open Innovation Challenges tend to be. How might we strengthen schools communities as sites reopen by highlighting solutions that reconnect people and enhance collective well-being, teaching, and learning? And so we've also heard from folks in our community. You see a quote here. It's been almost a full year since COVID-19 closed schools, which required students to initiate remote learning with varying access to technology, to devices, to basic needs, basic resources. And so as this reopening conversation takes place, many folks are talking about a return to normal or a return to what was, when in fact, a lot of the challenges that have surfaced over the past year are just exacerbated versions of what had existed before the pandemic or new challenges that have surfaced during the pandemic. But regardless, there are going to be challenges and opportunities that we face in this upcoming academic year and for a number of years to come, likely. And so as you see here, this transition to in-person learning, as this teacher and parent says, is really the beginning. And we're going to be diving into how this will impact the future for our students in schools for some time to come. As not surprisingly, this is a very, very crucial time. And it's a timely opportunity to holding a challenge like this, both for the area of Los Angeles and its surrounding regions. It's where a lot of our partners come from. It's a really unique region in that it's rich with diversity, and it was also significantly impacted by the pandemic, like many of the regions where I'm sure folks calling in from here today have experienced themselves. And so this is an open call. For those familiar with Open Innovation Challenges, this is not new, but for those not, it might be. And so an Open Innovation Challenge begins with an open call for solutions from anyone, in our case, from anyone with a stake in K-12 schools, kindergarten through 12th grade schools, as sites reopen in the Los Angeles region, but also around the world. We've been so excited about some of the participation we've already seen from folks outside of the LA region and outside of the United States. And the goal of this project is to invite teachers, administrators, students, parents, and other stakeholders who are interested in supporting school communities to navigate reopening in person to submit innovative solutions that can strengthen schools to reopen equitably, sustainably, and innovatively. And so One of our core partners I am so excited to introduce is Alan Arkhitov. He's the Katzman Ernst Chair in Educational Entrepreneurship, Technology, and Innovation at the University of Southern California, Rossier School of Education. And he's the founding director of USC's Center for Engagement-Driven Global Education, otherwise known as Center Edge. So good to be with you, Alan.
Thanks, Larry. Thanks, Danielle. We're so excited to be here. And we think this is really, we are all living through these extraordinary times. And we believe that this is an inflection point, not just for humanity, but especially for education. For what is Center Edge? And again, Larry gave a great intro. Thank you, Larry. And again, to our Ideo friends, we couldn't have better partners for this in terms of thinking about how to take this unusual moment in time and do something really important with it. We view ourselves at Center Edge as sort of the education interstitial, where the in-between space, where storytelling meets technology, where technology meets educators, where educators meet families, where families meet students. All these in-between spaces that for so long, things get stuck in between the cracks. And we thought in this moment in time, that this is something that our center could really lean into. We're in a great school of education, the USC Rossier School of Education, with great leadership, Dean Pedro Noguera. We have outstanding researchers, we have outstanding teachers, we have outstanding practitioners. And that three-legged piece, that stool of research meets teaching meets practice, we asked ourselves, what could we do in this moment that could uniquely impact not just LA, not just the region, not just the country, but the world. And so in this moment, we thought about in this pandemic, not to paraphrase the words of my old friend Rahm Emanuel, never let a good crisis, not a good crisis, never let a crisis go to waste. We have a crisis right now. And it's one of those rare times in the US. We had it locally when we had Hurricane Katrina, and New Orleans literally had to build itself up from the ground up. We're having a LA countrywide and global Katrina moment where we can reimagine education with the ideas and solutions that we think have been missing, not that they weren't there, they weren't being implemented. So how do you do that? We turn to you. We turn to you, the educators, you, the innovators, you, the parents, the students, and say, give us your best solutions. Either things, ideas, and practices that have previously worked, which we love, because as an educator, we like to quantify these things with efficacy research, but also things that have developed. And as again, we've never had a moment like this in modern history, where everything has been rocked down to its core. And so what are new ideas, new solutions that we can quantify, that we can take, we can do the evaluation with you, the audience, with educators, experts around the country, around the world, and be able to implement them. So that's the key. Why the urgency right now? We could have sat back with the Andrew Niku Foundation, with Ideo, with our friends across the education spectrum, and waited for this tumultuous period to end. We thought rather than that, it was important to lean into this moment, to give you, the educators, the innovators, the students, the parents, the education ecosystem, some positive messaging, some positive news, some positive opportunities, because let's just face it, there's just a lot of yuck out there right now. And we salute our brethren in education that are working tirelessly to reopen physically the schools and figure out that balance between online and in school. But we also know that for all those logistics of making sure vaccinations and making sure health is first and paramount to everything that we do, that we are innovating and being able to provide to the key stakeholders, first and foremost the students, but the educators, the parents, the entire education ecosystem, solutions that work, solutions that are scalable, solutions that are sustainable. And what better way to do it than crowdsource it? No one's ever done this before. And when we reached out to our friends at Ideo, they smiled. both metaphorically and literally, because they've done lots of different things in terms of education reimagining, and they've done tons of great open innovation challenges across the world in many different sectors. But for education, it's really hard. And for all of you out there, you know it, right? You know about, in the US, we have 13,000 locally elected school boards. Each one of those school districts has those school boards. They have superintendents. They have 50 different state standards. They have content standards. They have technology standards. They have so much noise going on out there. And for many of these reasons, no ill intent, that we haven't been able to get real breakthroughs on some transformative solutions for the basic problems that have been addressing education for years. Let's face it, we're talking today at a time when, you know, some people are on some spring break, some people aren't. You're all in different time zones. Education in America, the whole calendar is based off of an agrarian society. Like, how backwards is that? So we wanted to fast forward, albeit to a tumultuous time, one with tremendous pain, in 2021, and say, what can we do in this moment, in this time, using the extraordinary toolbox that you, the educators, the families, the students, the innovators, can lead us to do. And I promise you this, there will never be another moment in education history where we can break down some of those barriers that have held back great teaching and learning. So that's why we're here. That's what this is all about. It's about listening to you and then implementing the solutions that can improve teaching and learning. So back to our friends at Ideo, and again, we're so excited that you could be with us today.
That was absolutely wonderful, Alan. Thank you so much for sharing that context and that enthusiasm with the community. So now we're going to share a little bit about how the ReOpen is going to work. So you've likely found your way to the Education ReOpen brief, and that is where everything starts. We want you to read through the description and learn how to engage. You can also see more resources that can help you to support your journey. And the ReOpen brief page will look something like what you see here on the screen. Now, first things first, you'll want to either log in or sign up, and you will see that the Open Ideo platform has been upgraded to a beautiful, fabulous new interface. And one of the coolest new features that we have is our language translation. So in your profile preferences, you will be able to indicate what your native language is, and that will also, all of your alerts and notifications and everything will be translated for you. Then once you've gotten enough context around the Open and you've built a team and you have a really fantastic solution that you're wanting to share, you're going to want to submit a new idea. You want to develop your submission on your own or with the team. We really highly recommend folks to keep a copy of your answers as you draft them, because we know this is technology and a system can always, time out or break down. So we want to make sure that we keep a record of all of your amazing thinking. You want to save as a draft as much as possible, and then you want to save and submit your idea so that it's published. Now, one of the advantages to entering early and submitting your submission early is that you get to connect and collaborate. So once your submission is live on the platform, that it really is where a lot of the fun begins. This is an opportunity for you to engage with other participants. You can spark new partnerships, you can garner feedback, you can exchange thoughts, and you could potentially even build your team and find new team members. You can also browse other submissions to seek inspiration. And once you've published, don't forget you can always continue to edit your submission and idea up until the deadline for the open call. So who is this challenge, or who is this ReOpen for? This is for you. This is for students. This is for educators. This is for parents. Have you discovered something that helps everyone feel or be more connected or empowered while you have been remote learning or social distancing? Do you have a brilliant idea for perhaps a digital tool that could help people feel better or learn better or teach better? Could your solution support all types of learners with all different types of learning abilities? Could it be applied within just your city, your state zip code, or a whole different country code? So these are the kinds of ideas that we are looking to spotlight and to share and to scale. We want to support and amplify the ingenuity of you and your families and your school communities. So whether you have an idea that's already gaining ground in your school, or you're designing perhaps a new ed tech concept with the group of friends or colleagues, then we want to hear from you. And this is your moment to share what you've got. We need your innovations to move towards lasting changes that survive, not only in this moment, but deep, deep into the unknowable future.
So this does have a structure, and it is a structure that you can lean on heavily here as you think about where you are in the idea, the solution generation process. We know that at the beginning of these moments, these open calls for solutions are real opportunities to answer those questions of, is my idea the right fit for this challenge? Do I need to refine it in some way? Do I need to talk to somebody about it? We understand if those conversations are happening right now. To be clear, we wanted to make sure that we gave you as much wiggle room as we could here. And so we launched last Tuesday, a week ago today, on March 23rd at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And the open call phase, so essentially the time that you have to submit your solution on our platform, the deadline for that is April 23rd, which is a Friday at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time as well. So write that down in ink somewhere, create a notification right now. You can, of course, submit. We have submissions already on the platform. You can submit at any time, and you can, up until that point, edit your submission at any time as well. After that, we will enter the review phase. So this is a 2-week phase when evaluation of the ideas will take place. I'll talk about that in just a second. The process, as well as the criteria against which your solutions will be evaluated. After that, as is typically the case in open innovation challenges, you'll have a chance to improve upon your idea. And so folks who make it into the improve stage after the review phase will have a chance to go in and edit, to comment. And finally, at the end of this, we're really excited to surface a broad public solution exchange. And this is going to be a repository of high quality ideas for school communities from people who've submitted solutions from around the world. We know right now that educators, that schools, parents, families, maybe yourselves included, they feel oversaturated. There's so much information out there that they're not sure works or doesn't work, applies to them, doesn't apply to them. And we're really excited for this process to provide a level of curation for you. The confidence that what you put into place in your homes, for your children, for your students, in your school communities, has a very high likelihood of working and being adaptable for your school community. And so we have a couple buckets to help organize your thinking here. And so, as is typically the case, we have a series of how might we questions to help guide your thinking. And so the first one here, and we'll talk about categories in just a second, but the first idea that we hope inspires some solutions is how might we foster connections within our community and reach out to new ones? The second design question is how might we break down the barriers between classrooms and communities to acknowledge the reality that learning can happen anywhere? And the third, how might we create new systems of mutual support and communication that will boost well-being, mutual accountability, and benefit everybody? And so these are distilled into a few categories that are easy to remember. The first one is communities reconnecting. And so what we've seen, obviously, is that a lot of folks feel, what we've heard is that a lot of folks feel really isolated right now. And we know that coming back to school in person for both the adults and the little ones, or the big ones, is a really difficult prospect at first. I was just having a conversation the other day with somebody who said, with a school administrator in the Midwest of the United States, who said that it took a number of days and weeks for students to feel comfortable even just talking with each other again in classes, right? Something we took for granted maybe before COVID-19 hit. And so what are those things? What are those solutions? What are those strategies that we might put in place to help break down some of those barriers of isolation that the last year of learning remotely and being apart from each other, both during our school hours and non-school hours, the impact that that has had on us. The second theme is around collaborative teaching, learning, and leadership. One thing we've realized is that nobody can do this alone, right? Certainly our isolation has made that even more poignant. Collaboration is a term that we might have taken for granted before the pandemic, but we're really excited to elicit those ideas that get people working together, not just students in a classroom doing group work, but the adults in schools, the leaders in schools. How might they work together a little bit differently so that their responsibilities and their concerns and their opportunities are not siloed, right? We've seen, for instance, really interesting solutions take place between adults within school communities and parents at home who've been thrust into positions of teaching both formally and informally in new ways during this pandemic. That's just one of many ways that we think that collaboration can extend both across role and across generation. And our last category here is something that we hear time and time again around mental health and physical health and well-being. There's no question that families, that schools have experienced loads of tragedy over the past year. Both physical and emotional. Some people we have heard have lost family members. In that video that was played at the very beginning, you heard a student who mentioned that he had lost his aunt and then was scheduled to show up at a debate later that day for school and have to present himself. And people are carrying things that we cannot see or that we can see. And as schools welcome people back into physical spaces, what are the types of solutions that we might integrate into our school community, into our homes, that can acknowledge the trauma and also the opportunity for growing mental health in new ways that the pandemic has presented us? So those are the three themes that we're excited to elicit some solutions around. And of course, we are being very forthright at the beginning about the criteria against which we're going to evaluate these solutions. And so these also fall into three buckets, not related to the theme specifically, but to help you kind of organize your thinking. And generally, for folks who haven't participated in open innovation challenges before, these are criteria that we would recommend revisiting even before you submit your solution, right? Before you write your narrative about it, because thinking about how you're going to be evaluated, what your solution is going to be judged on before you submit it is a good practice generally. So the first category here is around relevance. Simply, does your solution meet the how might we question posed by this challenge? The second category is around impact. And you have some questions here that are going to be that can help guide your solution submission. One is around evidence, both observed, and the second one here is around a potential for impact. Alan had mentioned earlier that there are some existing solutions that might have evidence of having been implemented. We would love to hear what that is, whether you or somebody else has done that. But there might also be some emerging solutions, some fresh ideas that haven't been implemented at scale that you may not have implemented before, or the evidence for which is a little bit difficult to piece together. And so we would love to hear your thoughts on what the potential for impact is of that solution. And finally, we have a real, we're keeping as a priority here a real equity agenda with this, acknowledging that during the pandemic and prior to it, there are folks within our schools, within our communities that have been disproportionately marginalized. And so one of the core criteria of the impact bucket is, to what extent does the solution make school communities more equitable, inclusive for all students? And the third category is really it's central to open innovation, right? It's in the spirit of open innovation that we gather ideas from everywhere and then release them back. Right? So adaptability is a real core criteria. To what extent can your solution work in different contexts? Is it easily implementable for somebody next door or for somebody across the world? Are schools in particular positioned and capable, given their current curricula, their current standards, their current policies, their current personnel, to be able to implement this solution? And finally, we love this one. Does it inspire you? Does it inspire others? Is it something that somebody would want to take off a shelf and try out for the first time, or use to revise something that they're already doing? We're excited that these criteria, they might seem like a lot, but actually we're confident that if solutions align to these criteria in full or in part, that they will do wonderful things to help shape the types of solutions, both for you in the submission process, but also for others as they get shared out in our solutions exchange. And so that's the last bit about criteria. Those are kind of the nuts and bolts. I'm so excited to turn it over to our other colleague, Jules Ho, who's the Executive Director of the Andrew Niku Foundation, to talk a bit about the partners involved.
Thank you, Larry, and thank you, Danielle. Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me with you today. I represent the Andrew Niku Foundation, the lead funder of this Education ReOpen. Together with all the partners who joined ANF in making this ReOpen a reality, I'd like to take a moment to reiterate and extend our gratitude to all the educators with us today and who will be watching this some other time before they submit. Thank you for your passion, your commitment to your students, and for staying the course. We see that the challenge is far from over yet. I'd like also to take a moment here to share with you all the partners on this journey together. As you will see on the slide now, of course, Alan's crew, the team at USC Rossier School of Education Center Edge, our amazing design partners at Ideo, and of course, our funding partners, the Annenberg Learner, Great Public Schools Now, Joseph Drown Foundation, the Rosalind and Arthur Gilbert Foundation, and Schmoop. This could not be possible without the support of the Los Angeles County Office of Education, the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, the California Association of Independent Schools, TED-Ed, the Greater Los Angeles Education Foundation, and the amazing community at the Teachers Guild and School Retool. COVID exacerbated the pre-existing inadequacies in our education system. We started seeing how our children were experiencing this past year, and we now have the chance to learn in real time from the front line, from you and from each other. That learning starts now as we rewire, reframe, and reopen. We're hopeful and ambitious that this is an inclusive effort to collectively unbox, to spotlight the frontline educator voice, and to share the keys to difference making in the most extraordinary of all shared experiences, that is learning through this pandemic. As sites reopen, as our school communities tie our emotional and physical shoelaces and work on showing up all together again, this is our opportune moment to capitalize on and embrace how we come back better. Before I hand back over to Danielle and Larry to speak about the incentives to participate in this reopen, I'd like to highlight that our bigger ambition and halo of this reopen culminates in the publicly accessible solution exchange, where we can and will get to move from come back better to come and learn together better. What this means is that we see a longer frame. Beyond this reopen, the hope and dynamic incentive that more communities, districts, counties will join us in seizing this open call and build on this solution exchange together. Thank you, and we can't wait to see what solutions you will submit.
So I'll talk quickly because we're excited to get to questions here about the incentives, although it's quite important because it's an expression of just how humbled we are about the amount of time that people take to craft these solutions and the people from whom they come. We know that all the folks attending here, as well as all the folks who are taking time to watch the recording of this, have lives that you are navigating that are filled with lots of opportunity and potentially quite a bit of challenge right now. And so the ability to take a few minutes or a few hours in some cases, but we don't expect it to take too long, to submit solutions to this challenge is a real expression of gratitude and a real opportunity, we think, to support school communities, both locally and internationally. And so a couple incentives that we're excited to offer are $1,000 US for every solution that gets featured in the solutions exchange. Again, you might remember the review phase taking place starting on April 26th. It's all the ideas that meet the evaluation criteria at a certain level of quality. All those solutions will receive $1,000 each. We're excited to be partnering with TED Ed, as Jules mentioned, who are providing access to TED Masterclass. And that will be an incentive that we're excited to offer to folks associated with school communities. The Andrew Niku Foundation, who Jules represents, is also kindly offering an audience with select idea submitters to share about their experience in the ReOpen. Schmoop, one of our partners, is offering a tool called Heartbeat to folks who are also associated with schools to support emotional well-being and collaboration within schools between students and teachers. And finally, open innovation is an opportunity for visibility and exposure to experts. And we are so excited about our solution exchange being really at the core of that. The idea is that we're excited to feature on a platform and that we're excited to have folks look at and share. And that will come, of course, at the end of the challenge, but we think that that is a really important incentive of the open innovation process as well. So please take all these into consideration as you submit. And we're excited to answer any questions about them as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Larry. And thank you, Jules. Very excited for all of this wonderful support and added value to the community just by participating. And so, as we mentioned at the top, we did field a number of questions at the time of registration. So we've gone ahead and sort of synthesized the top level questions, and we will go ahead and share some responses here. But of course, in the future, if you have any additional questions, please do feel free to reach out to us at educationreopen.com, and we will also share that email out later at the end of the broadcast. So one of the most common questions we have received is, what happens after I submit my idea? Well, think of it as quick, crowdsourced feedback from experts, community members, and organizations to potentially improve your proposal is really what happens when you publish. Your idea is added to our platform. Other individuals and organizations participating in the ReOpen are able to view your submission, adding the feedback and insights, and that is really where the magic starts to happen, the connection and the collaboration that occurs on the platform once you've pressed published. Which leads into the next most common question we did receive was around data privacy. And we want to be super clear around open innovation and that this is an open source platform. So all of the content that is published on openideo.com is open for the community to build on. So with that said, if you do have proprietary information or anything that's sensitive that you do not wish to be shared publicly, we just recommend that you exclude it from your proposal and don't include it, and noting perhaps that you do have additional information or more resources, and that could be a really great way to engage with others and ask for them to reach out to you for more information. But again, if you have proprietary information or have any concerns over your IP or anything of that nature, just remember that this is open source and is the essence of open innovation. And you can learn more on our website under the frequently asked questions and the terms and conditions. But again, just wanting to emphasize that by being on our platform, you are open up to the public for public commenting, and hopefully that feedback will be generative and support, refining your solutions and ideas, and also reinforcing, connecting, and collaborating. The next most common question that we received was around geography and where can submissions come from? So I'm going to toss this question to Jules, and Alan would love to hear some more around your thoughts on LA versus non-LA.
Well, we are excited as we chart the course for the solution exchange. We recognize that one of Alan's favorite sayings is that education is a hyperlocal challenge, and yet at the same time we understand and recognize that there are shared experiences all over, breaking barriers of languages and geography. And as such, we would like to welcome submissions from all over, all corners of the world, really, but with the understanding that the actual implementation of this phase will be LA based. But the greater hope, as I had mentioned previously, is an ambitious one, in that we hope to roll out this this methodology to culminate in an ever-growing solution exchange that lives, breathes ongoing solutions.
If I could just add, I have to say this as someone who's a proud Angelino. We have a tendency to be a bit arrogant, not just in LA, in the US, that we know all, and that simply is not the case. And I think this is an exceptional opportunity. I mean, we are, back to the ego side of LA, we are the imagination capital of the world, okay. But we certainly don't have anywhere near the collective understanding of the pieces that to the puzzle that make education work. So whereas on this piece, we did, to Jules's point, we talk about Tip O'Neill, the former Speaker of the House, used to say all politics is local. I think all education is extremely local. That being said, math in Singapore, math in Europe, math in Africa is math in the US, and in so many other subject matter areas that we could talk about. Language, we can deal with that. So societal idiosyncrasies and styles, we can deal with that. But we also wanted to make an important point that we could get tangible realities for you, the innovators out there. So, I like to say that ideas don't implement themselves, people do. And the prizes are wonderful. We think this is going to be a wonderful incentive. And the ideas, again, are the easy part. The real key, as you all know out there, is about implementation. So what we're going to have with our partners here in LA, and we hope if there is someone in another part of the US or around the globe that wants to have a demonstration partner that can pilot stuff, we're not going to say no. And I think it would make it all the more exciting to show that we can connect the dots and connect the world. So yes, LA, we call it an inside-outside challenge, that we are going to do it here and elsewhere. We believe that this is dual transformation. Again, not just in terms of taking practical things currently working and new things that can work, but dual transformation in terms of LA, the rest of the country, and the rest of the world. So we welcome your ideas, we welcome your solutions, and most of all, let's put things into practice. That's going to be the real, you want to take a look at this a year from now and 2 years from now. It's going to be, could we take these solutions and put them into practice and scale them and make them sustainable? And by the way, this is not going to be a one-off. With our friends at Ideo, with our friends at NICU, with our other strategic partners and funders, we're planning to be in this thing for the long haul. So, and each year we plan to go deeper in terms of how we address these solutions, how we implement these solutions. But in this year of tumult, we want to get your best ideas, your best solutions, and see if we could quickly put them into the ecosystem.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much for that context, Alan. And very excited to hear that Open Ideo's global community is also welcome to participate and bring their voice into the ReOpen. And that leads into another really great question. We've been receiving a lot of interest now that the ReOpen is out into the world from folks who want to partner or potentially get involved as well. So just curious, what should folks do if they are potentially interested in becoming a partner or want to, again, perhaps be an implementation partner or something along those lines? What should we tell folks?
Alan, you want to take that one first?
So, I'm just thinking out loud here, but like, Larry, why don't you? I'm just better you on this one.
Sure. I mean, there are so many ways after launch of a challenge to engage. And so you see some of them up here. No question, folks in the Open Ideo community, the Teachers Guild and School Retool community, and other folks, however you made your way onto this call or to this recording, are well connected. And so we would be really excited for you to recruit participants from your own community, your own school community, to submit a solution along with yourselves. Some other things, we mentioned that the platform is open. Danielle just mentioned it actually as one of the first answers to one of the first questions here. And so certainly there are ways to continue to partner with us to help improve ideas, to comment and connect with others on the platform, and to really dig into solutions to make sure that we get from good to great in terms of solutions that are submitted. Certainly we would be open to, and a lot of our partners have already provided support in the way of financial and non-financial opportunities for participants or for implementation, actually. So that's an ongoing discussion. We would be happy to have conversations with you about that. The email will have it as one of the last things we share, would be a great place to contact us about that. And finally, Amplify. You will have a link to this platform. If you want any additional materials, this recording is going to be posted to the Open Ideo's Facebook page. Send this out via email, via social media. The farther it reaches, the better. And the more you can have conversations about this, the better as well. Schools are local. They're also about people, right? And so having an opportunity to connect with each other around this, to work together around this, or on your own, informed by your work with others, is a real opportunity to partner here.
Larry, the reason I paused, I was thinking about, giving examples of inspiring solutions. So it isn't just the solutions that our friends out there are going to be making, it's how they do it. And so I'm thinking of an example. I got a call 2 days ago from a school in LA where the assistant principal is planning to work with the teachers and 10 students to submit one idea. How important that is, that peer-to-peer collaboration, peer-to-peer of students, peer-to-peer of educators, peer-to-peer of parents, peer-to-peer in the education community. So it's not just the actual solution, it's the act of how you come out at those solutions, I think is going to be so important and exciting.
Yeah, and this other question here, it obviously gets to that. What's an example of what good looks like? What types of solutions folks can submit? We've heard a lot of questions of, is this the type of thing? Does it have to be technological? Can it be, offline as well? Yes, it's not an either or, it's a yes and. And so just some examples of some things that we've seen. Alan mentioned an example where students are gathering together to submit solutions as a team. Amazingly exciting. We have also seen solutions take place across the United States and elsewhere where entire schools, districts, in fact, have pivoted their offerings, set up systems overnight for providing food, medical care, technology, essentially responses to basic needs as a result of what they've heard from families in their community. That is a more involved solution. We've also heard really simple ones, analog ones, similar. Actually, one example here, hashtag from my window, feel free to look it up. It's a social media movement that connects communities and sparks joy through artwork where people post pictures that they've drawn, pictures that they've printed in their windows for community members, for folks around the school to enjoy. And we're also really excited about some of the early submissions on our platform. And so one submission is around virtual reality curriculum, where parents and students can learn actually how to better regulate their emotions and their behavior and make better decisions. It's a way of bringing folks together. And granted, virtual reality is a pretty technical solution, but another idea that we're equally excited about are rituals and principles for integrating gratitude into your school communities. That submitter referenced different thank you cards that school staff and students authored, referenced the importance of public appreciation, not just private appreciation, and even instituted something called Thankful Thursdays, where they took Thursday as a moment to express gratitude intentionally. And so technological, non-technological, online, offline, we're really excited for any solutions that respond to the question that we put forth here in this challenge.
The only other thing I'd like to just say is that it's so important. We're not looking, people always want the perfect answers. Education is hard, hard work. And there are so many stakeholders. It's really important for us to understand that we're going to work together with you to be able to curate, to improve, and then to implement. And I'm reminded, again, not to do the LA-centric thing. Once upon a time, back in October of 1969, it was a connection from UCLA up to Stanford. It was, at that point in time, ARPANET, the first connection, the first moment of the internet, that birthing of the internet. And they typed in, they were trying to type in the word login from UCLA up to Stanford. They typed in LO and it crashed. So things turned out pretty okay in this little idea called internet, but it was a beginning moment. There were a lot of brilliant people that were involved, and take a look at what happened with that. I get it. There's a lot of bad things that have happened out on the internet, and there's a lot of extraordinary things. But I give that as an example of a solution that it wasn't fully baked on day one, but it was able to evolve. And I think with you, the innovation and education community, we can do some extraordinary things.
We certainly can. And the first step to that is learning about human-centered design and design thinking. So I just wanted to toss it to Larry to maybe share what the next steps could be for us to start sparking that design thinking.
Sure. And this is also linked on the challenge platform as well. I saw Danielle had dumped a link in the chat for folks, and certainly we'll make sure to communicate that to all the attendees here. The Co-Designing Schools Toolkit is a wonderful resource that the Teachers Guild and School Retool just released. It's linked on our challenge platform under resources, so feel free to visit that. And it's a place for you to browse different activities, different frameworks that you can use to support collaboration. You can support human-centered, equity-centered design in schools. We know that not everybody who may be watching this is as familiar with the design process, and you may already have a solution in mind. We encourage you to take a look through the Co-Designing Schools Toolkit to see how you might make your solution even more student-centered, even more equity-centered, right? We mentioned that equity, for instance, is one of the evaluation criteria explicitly. So we would certainly encourage you to do that. And then just a few other pointers that we wanted to bring up beyond visiting the toolkit is just a reminder that we encourage you to submit your solution before our deadline of Friday, April 23rd at 11:59. It seems like a ways away, but it's not. So get that fire burning underneath you. We encourage you to do that as soon as you can. And of course, we encourage you to submit any questions either from this webinar or certainly as you engage in the process of submitting a solution on our platform to our email address, which is educationreopen@ideo.com.
Thank you all so much. That concludes our kickoff webinar. We are so thrilled to have had you all joining us live, and for all of those who will be catching the replay on Facebook. And for anyone who has registered, we will be sharing the recording as well as the presentation deck and links to the co-designing toolkit and all of the resources that you need in the next day or two once the recording is processed. But we're so glad to have you. Thank you, Jules. Thank you, Alan. And again, just wanting to reinforce, if anyone has any questions, please reach out to educationreopen@ideo.com.
And to all those in the listening universe, may the solution be with you.
Wonderful. Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
Be well, be safe.
Have a wonderful day. And we'll see you on the platform.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.